Are you ready to grow your business, build wealth, and spark transformation in the South suburbs of Chicago? Visit southlanddevelopment.org today and sign up for our newsletter to stay connected, get resources, and be the first to hear about the Achieve Summit, where entrepreneurs, developers, investors, and changemakers come together to ignite growth and opportunity. Don't just watch change happen, be a part of it. Join the movement at southlanddevelopment.org and start building your legacy today. In this episode, I sit down with leaders from Ability Engineering, Toro Construction, and Aeroplicity for a candid dinner conversation on the skills, systems, and solutions we need to unlock growth, from advanced technologies like AI and cryogenics to critical sectors like housing construction. I will thank you all for being here to this episode of The First Million is always the hardest. I'm going to ask each of you while you eat, and try not to catch you in moments where you're in the middle of a bite, to just tell us a little bit about who you are, your role in the organization, and the company a little bit as well. So we'll start with you, Luis, and then we'll go around the table.
Oh, thank you for having us here, Bo. My name is Luis Vasquez. I'm the president of Toro Construction. A background on me, I was born and raised in Mexico. I migrated when I was 17 years old. I officially have been here 32 years now. Of course, coming with dreams and to fulfill the American dream. We currently, Toro Construction is a general contractor in Chicago and the entire state of Illinois and across the border in a few states. We also own 2 manufacturing companies. It's called Integrity Wall. And I also own a few restaurants and event venues. I'll keep it there. I'm 49 years old and actually I've been living in Chicago Ridge for almost 20 years now.
So we're in your neighborhood.
You're in my neighborhood. You're
Excellent.
welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
Yeah, John Benzinger, CRO of Aeroplicity. We're a SaaS platform, basically, cloud-based service provider for aerospace and defense small businesses. All of us, who founded the companies have most of our careers in aerospace, and kind of just knowing the redundancies and inefficiencies in the market. It's a really old, even though it's airplanes and helicopters, it seems like cool tech, it's actually really old school, really, archaic, in how business practices operate. So we were just like, there's got to be after living in the industry for a long time, we're like, there's got to be a better way to do things. So we started a cloud platform to address a lot of the big issues that, are happening just in the day-to-day work of small businesses in aerospace and defense.
That's great. And Eugene.
I'm Eugene Botchway. I'm the president of Ability Engineering Technology, Inc. Been in the South Holland for 60, 70 years now. Whole business that I've been a part of for probably the last 15 years. Originally, I'm from Ghana. That's in West Africa. Ended up coming to college here in Texas. Got a full ride to go to a small school in Texas I'd never heard of before, Prairie View A&M. And I did mechanical engineering, and out of that, ended up working for a couple of large power companies and eventually ended up at Ability Engineering Technology. What we do at Ability Engineering Technology is we are experts in the design and manufacture of custom equipment and precision machine parts used in lots of process industries. And process industries are where in a process you're moving something from one position to another. So we move solids, we move liquids, and we move gases. A key component of what we do is in the space of cryogenics. So you start talking about really, really low temperatures. It's a niche area, but it's used in a lot of industries, from healthcare, when you're building MRI machines, used a lot in space. Today's big rage, quantum computing, microelectronics has a really big role in that area as well. The Defense Department uses it a lot for different types of satellites and other businesses. And the DOE is our #1 client, and they use a lot of that technology at all the DOE labs around the country. We do work globally, all over the place. And our hope, so dreams are to continue to expand and do more in this niche area that seems to be growing a lot faster than most people probably even appreciate.
Yeah.
So that's who we are, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about who we are and who I am.
So the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense are critical elements for a lot. And just for listeners so that you know what DOE stands for.
Yes.
But I have to start with, you said that you've been here for 60 or 70 years, so you've been using cryogenics on yourself. Because there's no way that you are like, you got to be 90 years old if you've been here that long after Prairie View.
It's good looks.
Man, I got to tell you.
Genes are solid.
Black don't crack, as they say, right?
Very, very true.
I can give you a recipe.
Yeah, exactly.
If I could get a recipe, I'd patent it and I'd retire.
Yeah. Well, we all may be in need of cryogenics soon. Feeling a little bit like what was that movie with the guy that oh my goodness, Goldfinger. But the new one that they did.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it'll come to me. But well, listen. One of the things we're really interested in for each of you, because each of you are in this industries that are critical to our future. You know, Louis, the work that you're doing around housing, affordable housing in particular, is one of the most important assets that every major municipality needs to figure an answer out to in order to sustain the diversity of employees that are necessary in a marketplace. Obviously, software, and in particular, given what's been happening in the last several months around the issues for software and air traffic control and issues has been really pertinent. But SaaS models, you know, software as a service, and all of the work that you're doing, there's been a growth industry really for the last 20 years for a lot of folks. And the work that you're doing, Eugene, that is around advanced manufacturing is a key component of what we hope to actually bring back to the United States and to grow. I'm curious just if you guys can share what your experience has been around the economy over the course of the last year in particular. How has it impacted your business? To what degree, for good or for bad? To what degree have tariffs impacted your business, if at all? And really, I think people are interested in understanding and how. Have you guys been paying for tariffs out of your company's profits? And what does that look like?
I would say the impact of tariffs have been mixed for us. We do a lot of government work, and typically government work is fixed, firm priced.
Yeah.
So you can't just go back and say, guess what? Price just went up, therefore help me out. It's not going to happen. And so that's caused a problem for some of the projects that we are doing, because all of a sudden we are stuck. And there's really no way around it. You got to figure out how you can be a little more efficient to get your costs down and hope you can at least break even and cover your costs for those projects. I mean, the next project you're able to then build in whatever tariff issues that might exist. But some of our projects run a very, very long time. Years sometimes, because there's a lot of engineering components involved, a lot of back and forth collaboration. So it's not like every 6 months, 6 weeks or so, I'm shipping. It can take a long time. So that's hurt on some projects. The concept of bringing work back to the States, onshoring, it's great. It's a great concept. But if you look at manufacturing in the US, there are lots of things we don't make. So yeah, you want to start buying all your stainless steel from Arrow or Rhode Alloys or some mill. But there's some mills in the US that only make certain sizes. So now you have to go to Europe. You have no choice. And so that's where you get stuck with the tariff issue, and then you have to figure out how to deal with it. We want to bring more jobs back. It's a great concept, but we don't have the talent pool to do the work.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get skilled welders or machinists. Or, I mean, engineering is a whole different ballgame. And so that's a huge challenge, you know. So great, you're bringing all this work back, but who's going to do the work? We haven't figured that solution yet to the problem. And it's going to take years to develop the kind of infrastructure that we need to be able to do this work domestically. So
Yeah.
We're dealing with multiple challenges. It's a great idea. I mean, if I look at the number of inquiries we are getting right now from industrial companies, the number has gone up.
Yeah.
Lots of industrial companies in the US are asking for quotes. But getting it done, getting the job, it's taking a long time. It's been a tough year, but we're trying to manage it as best as we can.
You can't just flip a switch and
No, there's no way.
open a factory, in a month, right? Like it takes a long time.
I'm curious because you're in an industry, Luis, where you're buying raw materials and a lot of them are coming from Canada. You're dealing with wood products and things of that nature. How have tariffs impacted your ability to build profitably in the short term?
In the construction industry, you always think you're protected because the NAFTA agreement, you're protected by the two largest partners of the United States, right? Mexico and Canada, you get steel, you get wood, you get other manufacturing allies within Mexico and Canada. We always thought we were protected by that agreement, right? But of course, we've been facing these challenges, and the biggest impact is how aggressive we are with our clients to negotiate a contract. We need to be protected. So we always have to amend certain aspects. They call it force majeure. Now we have to add certain clauses to tariffs, and they want to strike it through. What we've been doing to offset it is we can commit to you for certain days as long as you give us a deposit or allow us to invoice that in early stage to offset those tariffs. But to be honest with you, for the last months that we've been listening or hearing about these tariffs, we haven't seen any skyrocketing on prices on lumber or steel. Look like they've been able to keep it stable. But it just creates more stress, more impact within our clients because we need to be protected. Of course, the number one thing we always will rely on China is the appliances. That's the one thing we have to prioritize, and mechanical units, but we haven't seen a big impact so far yet.
I've heard that from other companies that there's been some change, and depending on particular products, some products there's been a huge increase, but by and large it's been a little back and forth. A lot of there was an effort to buy a lot of material and inventory right in front of the tariffs to keep prices low in hopes that there was going to be some stability. But the uncertainty is one of the things that's really driving a lot of people, to have headaches. I'm curious, in the software space, where you're not as reliant and there isn't a digital tariff, how has uncertainty in the economy impacted your business and people's willingness to hire you guys to do that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you see it in the industry itself, obviously, building software, we're not importing things. And we're still kind of in that, earlier stage startup mode, but just, I mean, we're out in aerospace and defense, and there's not an airplane or helicopter that's fully made in one country anywhere. Right? So, I mean, it's definitely led to a lot of uncertainty. It's still playing out, right? Because, tariffs on and off and on and off, and, it hasn't, I don't think it's fully hit yet. But it's a real global industry, right? The Boeing itself, the airplanes are sold everywhere, right? What impact does that end up having? A lot of foreign manufacturers of airplanes, like the U.S. is the largest market for, French manufacturers, and, other people, so what the overall impact will be, let alone just the component parts that go back and forth across the border, especially with NAFTA, like, people are uneasy, I'd say, but it hasn't quite hit yet.
Was there any impact in your business as a result of the increase in crashes that we saw a few months ago? Did that change how people determine the need for your product at all?
Yeah, I mean, we're really more on the defense industrial based supplier side, as well as a bit of the aftermarket MROs, like the maintenance, repair, overhaul, the garage shops for airplanes. So we haven't been within the operators themselves. That's not quite where we play. But definitely, I mean, there's always something happening in the industry where it's like, oh, there's a major issue. But yeah, tariffs itself, obviously as a software company, it doesn't hit us directly, but we see it in the industry.
What about immigration for you guys? And how has immigration at all levels impacted your business? There's been a huge, surge of people leaving, both the folks that often we are hiring at kind of operational levels to do work, but also kind of the folks who are, the brain trust of companies who have also decided to leave in some cases. Has it been an impact at all on your businesses, or has that been muted as well?
So we're a union firm, right? And 40% of union workers are minorities, right? Black and brown and other groups. So there has been an impact because, of course, people are afraid, even they're legal here,
Yeah.
right? Based on what's been going on. The other thing that's been affecting the ending of a lot of programs, the EI, DNI from the federal level, has been impacting contracts. Places like O'Hare, there are other federal subsidized programs that were stopped. SBA ended up letting people go that were offering small loans as well. So immigration has been impacted in many levels. We reduced our crews by maybe 20%. But it hasn't impacted our backlog or our project projections, but we've seen a lot of people, and I call it back what we call it, when we're ready to work.
Yeah.
We don't know what they're about.
One of the things that happened after COVID in a lot of places, but New York in particular, was that, people, when they didn't have a job, not because of immigration per se, but they left the country. But when COVID eased up and they tried to reopen a lot of those restaurants, there wasn't enough staff.
Yeah.
Arguably, there still isn't enough staff, and many of these restaurants are still operating. I know you're a restaurant owner, and many of these restaurants are still operating half or three-quarters staffed because they've not been able to recover since COVID. Have you experienced that as a restaurant owner?
Due to COVID, we lost 70% of our workforce.
Wow.
70%. So, of course, we had to manage it, re-strategize, and rely on the immediate family. Our manager left, immediate people left, and the head cooks and everything. So we rely within our own family who's willing to take over these positions. We were forced to downsize for 2 years.
Wow.
Of course, now we're picking up. I think the pandemic is over finally, people's mentality. And this year has been a good year. It was finally a stable year. Workforce-wise, we learned to work with smaller crews in the restaurant.
Yeah.
I guess we picked up efficiency, so we don't rely so much on having a lot more people than we do.
Has the changes in things like H-1B visa status impacted yet your businesses or immigration broadly? Because both of you are in kind of more technical businesses.
It's going to be a problem. The latest $100,000 thing is going to be a problem. The biggest issue we have is the talent we need is not readily available in the United States. If you look at cryogenics engineering, I actually did some research on this earlier today. There may be 8 to 10 universities in the US that do anything in terms of trying to teach that major. Most people who get into cryogenics have a mechanical engineering degree, but you need a little bit more than mechanical engineering to really understand the concept. So the whole country like this, as big as we are, only about 8 to 10 universities are doing anything really. I mean, there are a bunch of schools, but a couple here might teach a little class or two, but not really focus on it. So where am I going to find people to hire who can come right in and do the work? Yeah. They don't exist. Right. And now there's some countries outside the US where they have, India being one of them, where they actually have majors in some of these things, whereby you can find people who can come in here and can hit the ground running. But here in the States, you're stuck with poaching somebody from a Department of Energy lab or somebody who's worked at another company that's a competitor to try and build your workforce. Or you're essentially left at the point where you hire somebody who maybe can come in, and then you're spending 3, 4, 5 years trying to invest in them to get them up to speed.
Yeah, right.
So the H-1B issue is problematic. We'll probably feel it more as we try to expand and as we get into the quantum computing, AI and all this, and we need more technical resource to build the infrastructure for those types of facilities. Where are we going to find the people?
Yeah.
I would say right now it's too early, we haven't figured it all out yet, but next year, I think it's going to be a bigger problem.
And I want to play Bo's role here as
Yeah,
the
please.
main mediator, but in the construction area, there is a lot of funding from the state, even federal, for workforce development, right? And that's one of your missions.
Yes,
Is there anything existing for technology or anything that you do where the government can help you promote workforce development, education for the roles that you guys do in your business? Like it would be an upfront investment from the government. So maybe it's gonna take you years to do that, but there is a serious investment on the construction side, right?
Yeah.
So they invest millions of dollars in work.
There are some programs, I mean, in the state of Illinois, they have the E-TIP program. I mean, there's some programs through Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, DCEO. And I was talking to the folks at Illinois EDC, used to be Intersect Illinois, is now.
Intersect Illinois, yep.
Yeah, they've changed names to Economic Development Corporation, I guess. Where there are programs, and I'm trying to work with them to actually develop a workforce development program where we can actually look at working with retired professors, other universities, to kind of create a curriculum that we ability engineering would say, you know what, we'll actually start a training program, not just for us, but to help others. I mean, we don't really want to educate our competition, but if it's a business that we could develop to help get some of those people up to speed so that as the economy develops in technology, you have people who can actually go do this. Because small businesses, we can't always spend our money trying to train people because we want to make a profit. A welder to do cryogenic welding probably takes a year.
And once you've made that investment, you really got to keep that person
Yeah.
for a long enough time to make it worth its while.
Make it pay off.
This whole issue of workforce is major. I'm curious, for you, you've got kind of a double-edged possible sword and possible good thing because software development has really changed. We were being told everybody should go be a coder, and now I can do coding myself.
We do leverage modern tools, kind of in all aspects. But going back to thing on both like workforce development and the visa thing, we work closely with Elmhurst University with their STEM program, and we have some brilliant interns with us through there. And one guy, I mean, he's from Ukraine, able to get into the program at Elmhurst, and he's a rock star with us as an intern. And we're our hope is to bring him on after he finishes school. But there's I don't know all the details, and I think the student visa he's under allows for a few years, but I mean, at the end of the day, it feels like maybe in flux, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know what's going to be in flux, and for the H1B visa to go, all of a sudden there's a $100,000 price tag on it to hire anyone with that. It makes it almost unemployable, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're doing what we can. We're working with interns, very closely. We're finding some brilliant students, and a lot of those are foreign-born people, and what's the mechanics to bring them on?
Our experience is the same. We, at the Southland Development Authority, when we were formed, we immediately developed a partnership with University of Chicago's Applied Data Fellows Program. And that was a program that allowed us to take graduate students principally, mostly from University of Chicago system, but sometimes from other places, work with them for about a year's time, and then they often would either leave or we would hire them. We've been successful in bringing a number of those people on board full-time to work with us, including SAR and others. And we've actually helped to sponsor some people in order to be able to work legally here in the country, largely because some of the skill sets we were looking for that are specific to data science, are very specific. Maybe not quite as specific as cryogenics, but still in rare capacity broadly in the community. And that's been an important component to our growth. We've actually used data as a really important tool to demonstrate the impact that we're having, but needing science behind it and people who are really focused on STEM. This isn't an ad, it's just our experience. At the Southland Development Authority, we've spent the past 5 years growing our team. And time after time, we've turned to LinkedIn, not because we had to, but because it works. It's where we found people who share our mission, our energy, and our commitment to the community. For a small but growing organization like ours, it's saved us both time and money and connected us with talent that we might never have found otherwise. If you're looking for the right people to help grow your business, I can tell you from experience, LinkedIn works.
You're listening to The First Million is Always the Hardest. We are now returning to the show.
You know, one of the things that's really interesting that I'm interested in getting your feedback on too is artificial intelligence is kind of a wave that's hitting us. You know, there is a thought that we're going to be at AGI, or artificial general intelligence, within the next 2 years, which essentially means that machines can then learn on their own. And at that point, that changes the dynamics of how we work with artificial intelligence. I've already started to make some different choices in my hiring on the basis of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of work that I would usually rely on for one person to do that now I can actually leverage AI to do. And that's even separate from using robots, iBots, to do that work. How is artificial intelligence potentially helping your businesses or threatening your businesses? And I started the question with you on software coding because I just finished doing this work around creating a tool that would create criteria for investing metrics for real estate, and putting together kind of my JSOC that I would use to be able to enter into another app that would help me create kind of this module. I was not thinking about any of this stuff honestly 6 months ago, and now I have to think about, and I use AI in one form or another every single day.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, from our standpoint, our thought is like lean in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the AI is, 30 years ago, the internet was a big scary thing, and everyone was like, oh, it's going to kill all these other things and all that stuff. And the economy changed for sure with it, right? Where the chips fall with AI, we don't know exactly, but we know that, the economy and how we do business is going to change. So, being a software platform, we've built a AI into our platform. We're a different mold, with all the cybersecurity requirements for companies selling into the DoD and, regulations there, we had to build a AI feature that's kind of within our compliant bubble, but that's what we lean into. So if you're, if you're forecasting, and you're running your purchase orders through us, and you're managing your inventory, and you're, saying, all right, on my quotes that I have out there today, what's my win rate, what should I expect to have to increase in inventory, all those types of things, that's something you can do on our platform.
Right.
That I know it takes away some of the planning jobs that other businesses, right?
What do you think is a risk to your business with AI?
A risk. I don't think our company itself would be at risk from AI. What we provide is this compliant cloud system that you can go in and do your operations in as an aerospace firm. And and meet all the requirements within, like traceability requirements. Everything's blockchain backed, so you can prove authenticity, all that type of stuff. So, I don't think we're at risk. I think that we have an opportunity, but definitely, what we've built in our company, I think we've been able to build with a smaller crew, especially over the last couple of years, because we can leverage AI. It even goes down to like marketing, right?
Yeah.
We're not hiring graphic designers to create graphics.
Right.
We're using AI, right?
Yeah.
Messaging, all those types of things, right? That's a big change. Right?
Yeah.
That's a big change.
One of the things that people always say is, well, trades are going to be safe because AI can't hammer a nail or screw a bolt and all that kind of stuff. Honestly, I don't think so. I actually think that the pace of change of humanoid robots, that are using AI is going to actually accelerate faster than people think. I actually think there will be AI plumbers in the next 5 to 10
I
years.
hope not.
But I'm curious, given the experience that you're having in your space, does AI pose, in your mind, a threat, or does AI pose an opportunity for you?
If I go back in time, when automated nail guns were created, they thought they were taking people's jobs, and they were, right?
Right.
That was the new technology. But as we advance to today's date, AI is not taking anybody's job, it's just making us look better. In many ways, I love AI. I initially adopted AI for contracts,
Yep.
and which is compliant to federal state law. And it's really not that expensive. It's about $10,000 a year, and it's made by lawyers. When you want to draft a contract in compliance to state of Illinois, you just describe what you're trying to do, who's going to be your client, or who's going to be your contractor, and develops not a bulletproof, nothing is bulletproof, but at least with all the terms and conditions of the contract. Once it's executed, you wanted to produce a purchase order. I like to produce a purchase order for XYZ contractor. I'm gonna put this guy on notice, or I'm gonna send any type of notice that's drafted for you. You review it, and it just honestly saved me $100,000 from the previous law firm I was hiring just for those things. Before I send any notices, I had to consult with a lawyer, because my wife, as a former paralegal back in the days, she said that technology at some point was already available to the law firm she was working for.
Yeah.
It was a book, and they would search for words and would come up with the document, but now it's available to us.
Yeah.
On the marketing side, it should make us look, our percentage a lot better, but we always leave the human touch behind it. Because one thing, one AI expert told me, I interviewed him to come and work with us. He goes, the one thing about AI, it will always have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tell them when the parameters, because he will never say, I don't know. Even if it's the wrong answer,
It will give you something.
So you need to control it.
Yeah.
But always add the human touch to that. In the field, I mean, I wish we can create robots, but it's not the mission we're doing. It's going to be almost impossible. There is some technology, lasers and other technology that is out there to save us time and be more efficient.
It's interesting. Philosophically, there's another episode that we're going to talk about AI. So I won't get into it with you all as much now. You'll have to listen into. The first million is always the hardest. That's my one little pitch. But there is a belief that there are going to be kind of short, intermediate, and long-term changes. I philosophically believe long-term it will be to everyone's benefit, but there will be major adjustments, and the disruption that takes place in that adjustment could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Right? For those communities that can actually make that leap and get to a place where there is abundance of knowledge, and therefore there's abundance of access for a lot of different things, it'll be good. But there is a process by which, particularly in Western societies where status is so driven by a scarcity mentality, getting to a place where there is a shared economy could be very difficult, if not impossible. And so I don't know where we're going to be. I'm planning for the worst and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
But I do know that every business needs to be thinking about it, and most small businesses are in a place right now where they're not actually quite doing enough work that's necessary to get themselves ready for that future. So
The AI future.
yes.
I mean, it's complicated for us because we get some of the same benefits you get, Luis. We use it for marketing. If I want to look at all the companies or industries in the United States that have hypersonic wind tunnel projects, I can just type that in and to tell me
Yep.
where to go. Do you want me to write a letter for you for how you should market? I mean,
Yeah.
it will do all those things for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I told it to send those guys letters, it probably would do that too.
Yeah.
So you got that piece where it's very helpful. I don't need to go hire a bunch of guys thinking all day long and doing research to find them. Some of our engineers use it on occasion to answer some basic technical questions. We got a call last week from a client. Has a pressure vessel that they bought from China. Now they realize they don't have any documentation and they want to put it into operation. And they send us a note, what do we need to do? Da, da, da. You could take that, plug it in and say, if you look at the code book, you can do this or you can do that. That's just a high level piece of information. If you've been working for 4, 5, 6, 10 years, I don't have a problem with you looking at that and answering. A new engineer has no clue what he's reading.
Yeah.
Because to your comment, it's always going to give you an answer.
Yes.
And that I think is the mistake of AI, right? It has gotten a lot better. I mean, even the past 6 months, I've noticed less hallucinations.
5 is better than 4.
Right? Yeah, but it's making less things up, right? But really for newer people, for kids out of college, right? Those that's what we're using to replace it right now, right?
Dangerous.
Where you're kind of middle level manager, who's managing a team of people. Now they're starting to manage a team of AI agents, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the labor, transitions are most felt in the short term.
Yeah.
But the one thing with AI, not that I'm an AI expert, but with my belief, AI does it. AI scans the whole internet and finds the best practices and puts together things that it finds out there that make sense. But it doesn't really create any brand new things, right?
Right.
So the real creative industries, the real creative types, the real creative jobs are the ones that I think are the safest.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I started in an industry as an analyst doing mergers and acquisitions, in New York. And at that time, so Lotus 1-2-3 came out in like the 80s, right? And, that was the first time that you didn't have to do, analysis by paper. Excel came out kind of around the time that I started to get on Wall Street, and that was a big revelation.
Yeah.
But you were still inputting all of the numbers and having to do the calculation. You were still actually having to count yourself. You had to understand not only how the model worked, but you actually had to understand what was behind the model, what inputs and outputs were supposed to happen. By the time I left Wall Street, they now had macros, right? So I could put in 20 numbers and it would output the same thing that I used to have to spin and write out by hand. Now, they don't even have to do that. No. So the problem is, right, how do you get a senior banker if they were never a junior banker?
Correct.
You don't need a junior banker anymore.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story one of our engineers, now retired, told us. It's from Europe someplace, I'll leave it at that. And he started off in civil engineering, and he used to build bridges. And he said, back in those days, after you built the bridge, you had to stand under the bridge to prove. Plus they drove trucks across the bridge. If you thought it was such a good design and the calculations were right, and I'm thinking, using all the computers and all the AI stuff, I don't think I'd want to trust that thing to come up with a design and I'd go stand underneath that bridge and say, drive over and let's see whether it's going to work. I'm not that confident that the data coming out is always that accurate. And the thing is, when am I going to feel confident that what I'm getting is accurate? Yeah. Because who's checking this stuff?
Yeah.
Because there's no police I know monitoring
the
outputs that you get.
Yeah, and that's where when I can tell people are using AI, I can tell they're not checking it. You got to read through, even if if it's I don't know, asking ChatGPT to help me with this, better word, a simple email, right?
Right.
It still takes a couple iterations, right? You got to read through it, work it, not just put something in there and grab it. But it's coming, and we leverage it in everything. Even restaurants. My partner owns a restaurant here in Chicago as well, and we just got stickers made. For us, it's Sicilian street food, so Sicilian style stickers. And where we used to go to a company and hire their graphic designers, put it in ChatGPT. And a couple iterations, and it wasn't perfect, and he had to have the graphic designer make a change, but man, what a cost savings.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm curious, kind of changing topics a little bit, because part of the idea of the podcast is we want to find this intersection between what's driving your businesses and what's driving you. everyone kind of outwardly is so eager to find a way to get to financial freedom. And philosophically, we think that to get to financial freedom, you've got to be on a path of personal fulfillment. But a lot of that is driven by your childhood dreams. Just to give you an example, when I was 11 years old, I met this man. I was a friend of my mother's. He's from Barbados. And he told me a story that when he graduated from high school at 16, 17 and finished his A-levels, that he became a stowaway on an oil tanker. And he got out to sea before they figured out who he was, and they were too far out, so they couldn't bring him back. So he stayed on the oil tanker for a year, and he traveled the world, right? He's 17 years old, and he traveled the entire globe all the way around until they came back to Barbados and dropped him off. And when I was a kid, I was like, that's what I want to do. Yeah. That's it. I realized as I got older, what was really driving me was this idea behind wonder and exploring. I wanted to see the world. It wasn't that I needed to be a stowaway on an oil tanker, right? But I had to figure out, how do I take that dream and turn it into something that's actionable? And so I created this kind of concept that I've been using called Dream Ladder. So, if my underlying desire is for me to actually explore the world and have wonder, well, a simple way to do it is to eat a different food at a different, location for a different type of culture on a regular basis, right? So I can experience what it is to, eat Polish food or eat Chinese food or eat, food from Afghanistan, wherever. I can take the next step, which is a little bit more complicated, and study the music, the art, and the culture. I can take a more complicated step and actually learn the language. I speak Spanish like Dora the Explorer, unfortunately. My French is rapidly deteriorating, but these are ways of really understanding a culture, or I could travel to those cities, right? And part of what I'm interested in hearing from each of you is a little bit about your dreams when you were a child and how those things might have impacted the business that you're in. And also, if you had to reframe that desire, you may have wanted to be, a soccer star, right? Or you wanted to play the guitar. How have you reframed any of those dreams into something that's actionable today that helps you have a sense of personal fulfillment in addition to what you do at work? And I'll just start with you, Eugene.
I think my dreams changed over time. When I was a kid, my parents were expatriates, so we lived in Zambia, which is in the southern part of Africa. My dad was a school teacher, my mom's a nurse. So we'd travel back to Ghana, and I always wanted to be an airline pilot. I'd sit by the wings and I'd see the flaps come up. That's what I want to do, all right? So I ended up getting admission to go to college in Texas. Things just didn't work well in Ghana at the time. I was waiting for my O-levels. That's what we took back then, results to go back to Ghana. And a good friend of my parents was a medical doctor. He happened to be visiting to just hang out with his wife and kids whilst I was in Zambia at that time. And he said, whilst you're waiting for your O-level results, why don't you apply to schools in the US? Because he went to medical school in the US. So, had nothing else going on, I applied. I get accepted, I get a full room and board, and that's how the story changed. So I get to the US, Prairie View didn't have aeronautical engineering, so I did mechanical engineering. Then I go for a couple of interviews, I don't have anything yet, getting ready to graduate. And I see this lady who was sitting in an interview room, and I just walked in and said, hi. And she said, hey, hi. She said, I was waiting to talk to an electrical engineer, and the guy didn't show up. So I have some free time. I didn't have a job. Still hustling, trying to figure out what am I going to do. So she and I talked for about an hour, and I'm going on about how I came to the US, my dreams, and I think this is just random person. She says, I'll pass on your resume to the mechanical guys at General Electric. I got a letter like 2-3 weeks later. I thought, it's just. Next thing I know, I fly to Atlanta, go for the interview, and I get hired.
Wow.
So long story, so I realized, I've always believed that, I tell my kids all the time, no man is an island. We all need a break. Somebody's going to help you if you're available, blah, blah, blah. And it's also kind of dawned on me that you also have to be willing to help others.
Yeah.
Somebody had to, if that woman hadn't spoken with me, what would have happened to my career? I don't know.
Have you kept in touch with her at all?
No, it's been years, 30 plus years now, I think.
You never know, you might be able to find her.
You know what, that would be interesting. I should look into that. But you know, people help you for all kinds of reasons. There was something about me that day that made them want to talk to me, and vice versa. So that really has formed how I think. And then I also look back when I travel and sometimes meet some of my classmates from years ago who were not as fortunate as I was. And I think about if that guy had been born 5 miles on this side of the railroad tracks versus this zip code, if somebody had walked up to their parents and said, why doesn't your kid apply to the US? Life's, you know, we get breaks all the time. Yeah, and that changed my whole life. So I look at it, and as I've matured, my worldview's changed consistently. So when I look at my business, some of the proudest things I get out of owning a business right now is I look in the parking lot and I see the guy I hired who's now married, now has kids, has a job, you know.
And you gave him that salary.
Yeah. One of my proudest hires was a kid who came to us from right there in the South Side when he was in high school and said, I'd like to know what engineers do. And then we looked at him and said, come on in. We're making any money. But we said, come hang out, walk around, see what we do. We ended up helping this kid go through college, paid a little bit of his tuition. He had a job with us every summer. He's now a senior cryogenics guy. He's been 12, 15 years. It's one of my proudest achievements.
That's amazing. And that's one of the things I tell people about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It isn't just that you make money, it's that you get to hire people.
Oh, yeah.
And when you pay them, you're changing their life, right? They're feeding their family. But I just want to say one thing. How fascinating is it that your dream as a child was to be a pilot?
Yeah.
And now you're building rockets.
Yeah.
Right?
Never even considered
how many people actually are in a space where they've been able to take their childhood dream and transition into something that you do every day. That's one of the principles I find around happiness. Yeah. It isn't necessarily that I've made all this money and done all these things. It's that this thing that you can't even describe why you liked being at the wing and why you like being a pilot. It was just like a subconscious aspect of you as a child, but you gravitated towards it. Yeah. And naturally, you moved yourself into a place where you're building components to go to rockets to do exactly that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, making money is nice, but making money and being able to influence somebody else's life in a positive way.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be remembered for something. And I mean, when you hire that guy, even if he's making minimum wage, but all of a sudden you just see their lives improving, you just feel like you've done something. And I tell my children this all the time. Our lives we're not here to just live life and just kind of do nothing.
Yeah.
We're here to do something with our lives, and hopefully we do something with our lives that helps somebody else. And you never really know who you are. When I hire a guy with an H-1B, and I remember back in those days, when I was the foreign guy, I wish somebody could have said, you hire, we'll give you a shot, 2, 3. It's important.
This isn't a sponsored message. It's just what's worked for us. At the Southland Development Authority, we've been using Bill.com for the past 5 years to handle our invoicing and payment processing. For a small but growing organization like ours, it's been a game changer, saving us time, keeping us organized, and making sure payments go out and come in smoothly. It's simple, reliable, and cost-effective. Most importantly, it's freed us up to focus on the work that really matters, serving our community and growing our impact. If you're looking for a better way to handle payments, Bill.com has been the right fit for us.
You're listening to The First Million is Always the Hardest. We are now returning to the show.
You are in an industry where you've got a lot of people who, particularly in trades, that but for the work that you do, would be impossible for them to take care of their families. What you are doing every day is supporting not only your family, but many, many families. I'm curious about your background and your story. What were your dreams when you were a child? how connected is what you do to what some of your dreams were? And if you could just kind of give us a little bit of your sense of your background.
Sure. We were a middle class in Mexico. I guess we were living a good life. We always had food at the table. My dad was a farmer, but also was a politician in our town. He loved politics. His first dream was to be a doctor. He couldn't do it because he had to help my grandfather at the farm, but he was a really good politician, and people will follow him. And as a kid, I would see my dad in a podium giving speeches, and I was falling asleep on the chairs, like late night and everything. And we got to hang out with other kids. I like to see my old man being respected so much. And people were pushing him to tell him, you can go higher, you can go to the state level. He wouldn't take it. He said just to protect us because they're always gonna say there's corruption and there's these things. He wanted to keep us all protected. But as a kid, as a teenager, as I started growing, the ultimate goal when you're 13, 14, you migrate to the United States for one purpose. Make $10,000, bring it back and spend it here with a pickup truck and date the most beautiful girl in town. Yeah. That was attractive, right? Of course, the first time I came and I went back, I was following that kind of rule, right? I'm the cool guy now, I'm new in town after 2 years and spending money like I didn't have. But this one man, I was just talking to him, was a very successful guy. He was cashing dollars. Everybody would go and cash pesos for dollars and was making tons of money. He goes, Luis, are you going back? I'm going back. This time, don't mess up. You need to start saving your money. Don't do what this other stupid is. You come from a good father, you have good grounds, you gotta save your money. If you come back, you better come back married, because don't start fooling around with these kids, like these kids are. Make sure you find a good wife, because you need a good wife beside you to support you. He said, I know you're gonna own a business, I don't know what, I don't know what your dreams are. And that always stood in my mind, because my grandfather and my dad, they never worked for anybody. They had their own farm, their own business. They never relied on catching a paycheck. That's how our family was. When I migrated the second time, coming back, I did find a beautiful and grateful, I was grateful to find my wife, Socorro. I was in my 20s. And she always knew, she always said the same thing. You're gonna run your business. I didn't know it was gonna be in construction. The biggest accomplishment is to help people around you to grow financially with you, your immediate family, and everyone has been doing that. My sisters were stay-home moms, and I told them, you're too smart to be home and do nothing. You need to be the manager of XYZ restaurant, and you're gonna be managing this other venue. You started as a waitress or buzzer or hostess, and now they're the actual managers 2 years later. They're smart in doing math, they're smart in managing people. Same thing with my brother, he's my partner. He was a good guy, he's a good leader, he's a director of operations. So nothing was created just by myself, it was created collectively because the families always have your back, right? Now, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I think I'll be a politician, an elected official.
There's still time.
I would love to be a senator.
Yeah.
I feel politics now, it's all about being at the ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, but need to learn to legislate. Mm-hmm. And they're more for the picture than anything else. There is a lot of things that they can do, they just don't know how to. I think there should be a cohort for them. Before you become an elected official, this is what you need to do.
Run a business.
Run a business.
It helps.
A hot dog stand. That's not too big. Run a profitable hot dog stand before you can be a politician.
And that just sounds simple enough, right?
It's hard.
It sounds like the hardest thing.
But you're right what you're saying. Our controller, she's our top rank in accounting. She was a single mother walking in our office. The office was the size of, I don't know, 1/4 of this room. We have 4 desks. She walked in as a single mother. The kid, less than 1 year old, looking for a job. And she had only 2 years on accounting science. I needed help to print receipts, and we hired her moving forward. She spent with us 8 years. She's our controller. She bought a house, bought a car. She's getting married again. It's just one story of maybe 50 people.
Yeah,
that been with
that's
us.
amazing. It's amazing.
And one thing to add, as you were saying the story about the lady is, one of the things I also like about being a business owner is I'm not stuck with the rules of the larger companies as to what type of person I hire.
You get to take a risk on what
I
you
take a risk, we have some folks who work for us right now that you would never hire them in an engineering firm. They might not have the right credentials. They might not do, but they've been with us long enough where we know what true value they bring. And so you're able to improve people. I mean, you pay them well because you know what they do, not because of the degree they have. And so being an owner of a business gives you an opportunity to actually do certain things that you wouldn't have that opportunity to do if you work in a totally different environment. And that's something I really value.
I think so I will just say, I tell our team all the time as a not-for-profit organization, our job is to take risks on people and projects that the private sector would not do.
Yeah.
Because if we're not taking that risk and the market is going to do it, what's the benefit of us being a not-for-profit organization, right? And if you want to use a investment term, there's a lot of alpha. There's a lot of opportunity if you're taking a risk on somebody that others won't, right? So there are moments when you hit it and you find that right person, like you won the lottery. But your point is, when you are that owner, you get to determine that risk. And your vision of what someone looks like who's willing to take that you're willing to take that risk on, is important. And also to train, to invest, like you were describing with your sisters, how you basically said, all right, I'm going to set you up with a situation here. I'm going to pay you a salary, but you're going to kind of start at the bottom. You're going to work your way up, but I'm going to work with you to get you to a place. And now they're bosses, They earn their way, but you took a risk on them. You invested in them by training them to get them to that place. It ends up being to your benefit too, right? You get a benefit of having trusted people that are in positions of knowledge and experience, but other people may have never taken that risk on them if they walked in and said, hey, I've never done anything in this space before, but I'd like a job. So, John, I'm interested in hearing your story and background too, and the hopes and dreams that you had when you were young and how they translate, if at all, to today.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree that, I think dreams change, as you grow, right? I know, like, as a kid and, in high school, and I never wanted the idea of this is what I'm going to do for 40 years and I'm going to do the same thing every day for 40 years, like, drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I could never do that, right?
Yeah.
I needed to go after what opportunities I could, and have the ability to not be locked, into something, so, went to college, got business degrees, worked in sales and marketing, in various aspects, got in leadership roles pretty quickly and developed a lot there, which was good. Got into a aerospace firm. Out of college, I worked for an art professor in a small business, always in a small business. He kind of built this business accidentally and, wanted some sales and marketing. So it was an internship that turned into a job. The recession hit, and so that kind of went away. And then I landed in an aerospace company and had a great mentor of a boss and developed a lot and did a lot of things.
Yeah.
Learned the industry well. Actually left there right as COVID started and went to a consulting company for a bit as the aerospace guy, because, worked with a bunch of different companies. But, it was really just the idea of building an expertise, both in an industry and in a discipline or skill set, and then getting back together with people that I've worked with previously, saying, we know the industry, we know what we don't like about the industry, and we have an opportunity to change it, right? And it's the opportunity, right, that says, all right, here, as opposed to be punching a clock, 40 hours a week for 40 years, chasing the next opportunity, seeing the next thing, right? And really the reason we got into aeroplicity and doing what we're doing is because we're like, pulling our hair out, at least when I used to have hair, pulling it out with just the old school way of doing things in aerospace and defense, right? Like, everything is still paper driven in an industry that's supposed to be cutting edge. And, we're like, it doesn't have to be this way. Why can't we be scanning QR codes instead of literally printing packets of paper this much? Some people, like, multiple pallets of paper sometimes go with a shipment of things just for all the documentation. There's a better way to do this. Why are we managing inventory where we're literally counting items and writing things on cards? Why can't we use, QR codes? There's all these regulations which we know well. You have to prove authenticity. We built out blockchain. There's technology for it, right? So there's an opportunity, right? Which is why we came into the market. So that's kind of.
And how has your dream perhaps changed now? So when you were younger, you were scared by the concept of being focused on one thing. Now you've become an aerospace guy.
Where it's been consistent is honestly it's a concept of freedom, right? Mm-hmm. To be tied to this 40-year career, right? I mean, there's no freedom in that. Making your first million, even the financial concept is about freedom, right? Like
at least theoretically.
Theoretically, but to be able to decide, I can go where I want to go and do what I want to do and take risks that I want to take, right? Which was, hopping on to, Aeroplicity, a startup where we couldn't pay ourselves for a while. I had to be able to have the opportunity to do that, and have enough behind me to be able to do that. So, I think it does kind of, though the individual paths evolve and what good looks like and what success looks like changes, the goalposts keep changing, for various reasons, right? But at the core of it, just, the concept of being able to choose my own destiny, right? And not be stuck and beholden to something else or someone else. That's probably where it stems from.
But one of the things that, I'm really, interested in is how do you create these kind of ladders of difficulty as I described them. So, Luis, when you describe the dream implicitly that you said of being a politician, right? There are ways to achieve that goal that aren't necessarily being a politician. You gave a good example of one, which is, why isn't there like this cohort that you create that helps people learn what it is to do legislation before they actually become legislators, right? There's an opportunity to actually do that, because that's a real skill. And a lot of people who've never been, working in government don't understand, like, legislation is a skill. And that's why not just everyone can do it, because it takes time to learn. Your dad obviously had a lot of skill sets in that regard. There are ways to create small things that don't necessarily require you to quit what you're doing, but could foster you feeling that dream. And a lot of what I try to use this platform of the podcast to is to say, hey, find those kind of ways that you can gradually move yourself in the direction of where you've always wanted to go, as a supplement to what you're already doing, because that's where you find this path of personal fulfillment, real happiness, right? That gets expressed in everything that you do. And turns out that when you are moving in that path, money and other things kind of follow along with it in many instances.
To be honest with you, I enjoy so much what I do. To me, it's not a job. It doesn't matter whether it's Saturday, Sunday. They ask me, what would you do when you're retired? Start doing the same thing that I'm doing, because for me it's retirement, right? I did find my passion by building. I had the exposure to open other businesses, like the manufacturing company, Integrity Wall, to work with your agency as well. I guess being a politician is more like, that dream just came a few years later. That didn't know until my wife started saying, you really want to be a politician. Like, you know, I think, you're right.
Maybe you're right. But it's interesting. Well, it's funny. 20% of people I ask the question about what they want as a dream actually don't remember having any dreams as a child. And we did, obviously, all of us did, but they can't remember. And like so much of how we think of ourselves is in this really subconscious state of things that for many people it's hard to draw back to. Many of those things are filled with all types of trauma, but most of the time those traumas actually turn into superpowers too. The thing that actually was difficult for you actually gives you some skill set that allows you to do some of the things that you're doing now. So I'm always really interested in keying in on that part. I also am a person that doesn't believe in this idea that we never have regrets and that all you got to do is follow your passion. Some of us have been lucky to find our passion, right? But sometimes a job is just a job. The purpose of that job is just to feed your family. And there's no shame in that whatsoever, right? And actually your passion might be, coaching your daughter's soccer team.
Yeah.
And that's okay that the job takes care of the family and allows you to follow that passion. So finding that mix is great. When you're fortunate enough to find the thing that you can get paid to do, right, that you enjoy doing, the world needs it, right? And you're passionate about, kind of, I think in Japanese they call it ikigai. That's like a blessing when you actually get there. And most of us, most of us don't. We make some compromise in one of those areas.
But there's nothing wrong. You're right. There's nothing wrong with having a job that helps you provide for your family. And sometimes, I mean, it's not any spiritual thing here, but that makes me think like that. It's just, I guess, life experiences and some of the exposure. But sometimes the impact you have is maybe 2 or 3 levels removed from you.
Absolutely.
You might be feeding your family. Your wife or your husband or your kid might say something to somebody else, or because you're able to provide for your family, you impact somebody else indirectly. And then, that passion you have then comes out through that person. And that's really not how you started out. So, number one, you got to feed your family, you got to eat, you got to take care of yourself. But I think we also always have to keep our eyes open for how something we do can inadvertently help somebody else.
No question.
That we maybe weren't even thinking along those lines. I mean,
Like the woman who stopped you
Yeah.
and was willing to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
why did she talk to me that? I don't know.
For an hour.
Yeah, it gave me an opportunity that I would probably not have gotten any other way. Because the mechanical guys were not there that day to interview anybody.
What's interesting, I was called to do an interview with a school student in the agriculture school right here down the street. Senator Preston's daughter. Senator Preston is like a brother to me. We know each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
He was elected official. Her daughter asked to interview a business person, so he offered me, so I thought it was going to be 1-1. They interviewed the whole class was interviewing me.
They
And
gave that for you.
I was sweating. Jesus Christ. But remember what that lady you encountered. I said, what can I tell this kid that I will always remember? They were asking me questions, answering, and just like that. And I kept asking, what the hell do I tell these kids? So they remember. I just couldn't come up with anything else. I said, if all of you guys have dreams to be entrepreneurs and run your own business, I would say you are, because I'm here, you're asking entrepreneurs like myself. If you do, this is exactly how I started asking this type of questions, because you're interested. You're in the right path. You're only 17 years old, but it's exactly how you start.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what industry you want to go in, you start with the perfect scenario, which is numbers, understanding numbers. They're masters in accounting, and they're only 17 years old. I don't know if that was the right message I wanted to share with them, but I didn't want to walk out and say, we didn't learn anything from this.
Yeah.
It's hard to speak about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's very difficult to speak about yourself, and often, particularly for younger people, they only resonate with authenticity. If you don't feel authentic, they just shut down and can't hear you at all. So being authentic is important. And one of the ways that we try to be authentic is to share with them our struggles, the things that didn't work. I'm curious, John, to start with you, what are some of the tough lessons that you've had to learn with Aeroplicity as a startup? And I typically ask a series of questions, and we probably won't go through them all, but did you start Aeroplicity with the idea that this was going to be something that you build and sell? Did you start Aeroplicity with the idea that this is going to become an empire that you guys can grow and kind of siphon off money but keep control and power? What are some of the difficult decisions that had to be made about partnerships, raising money from outside capital versus bootstrapping?
Yeah.
Take us through a little bit of that.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that, the idea is to build it and sell it, I don't think it's like grandkids are going to be running it or anything like that, right? But really, I mean, we came to the company, a group of us, just like saying with specific problems we wanted to solve, right? And building the company to solve those problems. We were, aerospace tech company, blockchain, we built our own blockchain language, all this stuff, right? So there, when we were first starting in 2023, there was a lot of conversation with VC firms, and we were like, all right, if we can do this, and then we can get this much VC money and all
Did
this
you guys
stuff.
raise VC money?
No.
Yeah.
And
You could have said it a little.
yeah.
No, hell no.
A couple, points that I don't know how much, but 2023 was a terrible year for VC. They were
Still
not.
is,
They were
2025 is a terrible year for VC.
Yeah. So we were like, crap. But what we also, we were all, you hear so many horror stories about VC, right?
Yeah.
And really the lesson is like, be careful who
You partner with.
anything in life, right? When getting married, be careful who your partner is, right? Think that through. In business, with investors, right? So what we actually did was we raised on kind of a friends and family round, but really with the concept of we know a lot of people in the industry. We've been doing a lot of voice of customer, VOC. That's a lot of what my background is. What I brought to the table, right? Which helped us steer our direction into what we're developing and how we're building out our platform. And people were really interested in us. So we said, well, why don't, let's do kind of a friends and family round, but let's get, we didn't want to take a check from anyone who was just offering a check, right? It's just money, right? What can they bring to the table? So we raised a lot from inside the industry. Our lead investor was actually our launch customer as well. Who's
that's a testament.
Yeah, right, exactly. And and he's like, what we're building.
You're going to get some business from him.
Makes his life
right?
easier. Makes
right.
it makes his company things easier in his company. And we raised from a few people kind of in that whether they're customers, whether they're other people who've built things in the industry and they are individual or whatever, right? So we raised, we raised mostly from industry.
Yeah.
And we're much happier with that than, we're active in a lot of startup communities, and we talk to a lot of people who they took from this VC or they took from an angel who now they have to have monthly, full days.
You got to talk to people like me all the time who have a bunch of questions.
Oh my God! And it takes a week and a half to prepare for it every month. And instead we raise from people who understand what we're doing.
But one of the things that's difficult, you're particularly in a space where it's not capital intensive in terms of the assets.
Right.
Right. So typically, one of the things I studied when I was in business school was a lot about something that was called the sustainable growth equation. And what it simply says is there is a number, a percentage that you can grow your top line revenue without having to either change your level of profitability, your asset turnover ratio, your leverage, and or your dividend. But if you want to grow higher than that number, one of those things has to change. You either have to go out and get more equity or debt, you have to actually become more profitable, you have to figure out how to reduce or increase the asset turnover. You've got to do something. Otherwise, you can't grow beyond that number. Most software companies struggle with that because they grow too fast, right? They actually grow so fast that they're required to go back to the market too many times to actually borrow money or to get equity, typically, right, in order to sustain their growth. Because you build once, you sell many times, right?
Yeah.
So how do you guys manage that? That is a tension that exists in every single software company. How do you manage that tension?
Oh, I hope we have that in a year.
Yeah.
Get back
Right.
in a year.
Good. That's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have. Well, Luis, I'm curious from your perspective, some of the challenges that you've had to overcome, mistakes that you've made that we can all learn from in your process.
Well, we finally overcame the bad years to the good years. Toro was created in 2005, and we closed the company 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. You went through the Great Recession, you went through COVID.
Yeah, and plus I think we realized that we never wanted to quit our jobs. We were too comfortable. She was making good money, I was making good money. It was more about my side job, making some cash dollars, and now I wasn't disciplined enough. I was trying to learn the industry, even though I was in the streets. And I was getting myself into ownership. My bosses sometimes would like me to be part of certain meetings. I would sneak into the meeting and at least collect the meeting minutes, see what they're talking about. I would take them home and then send it the next day so I can at least have a conversation. But I realized after trying for 5 years from 205 to 210, even pulling our retirement out, my wife and I, my junior retirement, my wife's 401k, I told her, if we do this, I'm sure it's gonna work. We did about $100,000 in revenues, and we pulled like $36,000 from our retirement, which was only 26,000 cash value.
Right. You got to pay taxes on that, unfortunately.
I was so embarrassed, and my wife said, I asked you to screw up your retirement again. It's okay, we'll try again. And I realized one of us needs to quit our job, and that's gonna be me. You have a better insurance than I do. You know, I never missed a day of work for 9 years, including Saturdays. I felt her job was more stable. So I started doing a bunch of side jobs to create a cushion as a man of the house. I need to pay the bills. I never expected any money from her. She works great. If not, I saved 6 months worth of mortgages and bills and everything. And I quit my boss. Therefore, they were from Ghana, Oakley Construction. They were the best bosses I ever had. And I told my boss, I'm resigning. It's about money. No, it's about money. I give him a 60-day notice. I finished the job, and January 2014, I woke up with no job after so many years of working, and I had no choice. But
You have to work now.
I had to work now. Of course, I wasn't paying myself for several months, and I was trying to make it work. But I had faith. My wife had faith. The lessons was that I cannot just be doing it by myself, because I told my brother and my wife, I'm gonna quit the job. You guys keep going. I bring some backlog, some work, and if we're ready, you brother, you're gonna quit first, and then your wife last, because she get to do work from home. Back then, the computer. So by the summer of 2014, both of them joined our team. We had $600,000 worth of work in the backlog. Now, the three of us, Carlos will take care of operations, I will take care of estimating project management, my wife HR, payrolls and stuff like that. We all went our way. As a result, now we're a $60 million company. We've been growing our company. But now we notice that we're too big to be small and too small to be big.
Yeah, you're in that
Financially,
in-between world.
To get access to capital in the ways construction is measured, it's so hard to get extensive lines of credit.
Yeah.
Long-term loans could be an option. We haven't been able to figure out how we jump the next step.
Yeah.
The jobs that we're pursuing might be too large financially, but not in terms of experience.
Yeah.
We need to some injection of capital. And we're too large to be acquiring some smaller jobs, because our overhead grew up so much.
Yeah.
So we're in a situation where we're in the middle class right now. And there is an opportunity to grow. But as you were talking, you said, this is exactly what we need to see, all the areas where we can get access to capital and continue growing.
Well, that's something that we can help you with, at least conceptually, right? So happy to have that as an offline conversation. But I'll tell you what I've seen that works in that in-between state is often it's using your company as a platform business, and then actually acquiring other smaller businesses as a roll-up. And that's where you can actually get financing. But the issue is that if you go that route, you have to actually commit to the fact that you're going to take other people's money. And that does change the dynamics of the business. And so you have to decide, is it more important for you to kind of gut it out with your own capital and maintain that kind of control, right? Or can I grow this business much faster with an equity infusion that comes and may require me to actually go into the market and acquire businesses? It's not an easy question. You know, a lot of times I think people are too overly focused on control because they don't really understand what control is. You know, Rupert Murdoch owns less than 20% of News Corp, but he controls News Corp, right? Bill Gates never owned, well, he doesn't now at least, own 50%, but at one time controlled, you know, Microsoft. Control and majority ownership are not necessarily the same thing, but you know, these are really fundamental questions, and they're not easy questions. They're much more art than they are science about what you'll be comfortable with. You built a family business, and we've had an opportunity to talk to a couple of people on this podcast about family business. That's a whole nother conversation that we may follow up with you on, but the fact that you've been able to successfully build a family business and stay friends with your family and stay married is a testament in and of itself of success, because it isn't easy. And I'm curious, when you think about that same question, I'm curious about how you think about not just the decision financially of whether you are getting outside capital, you're building, from bootstrap, how you think about partners, right, for what you do. The nature of the type of work you do, and it's similar for you, but because you're building the mechanical components that are becoming part of much larger entities, you're required to partner with a lot of the folks in a forum with folks. How do you think about those partnerships, both with companies and people? How did you think about the decision of whether you want outside capital or you're going to bootstrap yourself? And what are some of the challenges and mistakes that you've experienced that have influenced how you run the business?
I've been on all sides of this, so when I'm broke, which happens, cash poor, you're sweating, you're looking for a partner, somebody to bail you out, right? When you have cash coming in and projects are moving right, typically I don't want a partner. So it makes me ask myself the real question, why do I truly need a partner? Because I've also noticed I don't like people asking me 1,000 questions and asking me to justify what I'm trying to do. The beauty of owning your own business, in my opinion, if it's not too big, is you make the decisions that your gut tells you make sense. If you make a mistake, I don't have to explain it to everybody. I just gut it out and move on. So, but I think you come to a certain point in your business, like in your case, where you have to make a decision. Do I want to go up? Am I comfortable where I am? And that's a tough decision. I mean, at my age, I'm asking myself, with all this quantum stuff going on, the IQMP and what's happening in this whole space, how hard do I really want to push this thing? And why? So I'm not very interested in legacy, like, I'm going to leave something for my kids. No. My kids have their own interests. If my kids decide they want to come in the business, I'll do everything I can to help them. But I don't want them to ever feel pressure that they have to come join the family business. So I'm not encumbered with that problem. Having a partner is good, especially when times are hard, because you need somebody to talk to. Somebody who you can go and say, we really screwed up on this project, cash is tight, and you need an outlet. So right now, would I go for a partner? Probably not. I'm part of a business group called Vistage, and they act essentially as my informal board of advisors, which helps, because being a business owner is very lonely work. You always need therapy. You need somebody to talk to, somebody to tell them how good or how bad stuff is. So they act well as a good advisory board to talk to. But as I look at some of the things I'm trying to do now, the opportunities in front of me, I'm leaning to people like you to help me I want to get bigger with a specific goal in mind. But I want someone like you guys with the financing and stuff we're talking about to help me kind of manage how much growth I can truly get. Because the other thing to have noticed is most people who work in small businesses don't have the skill set to go to big companies. So if you get too big,
or the mindset,
you're going to have to need a different group of professionals to run that business for you. And your brother, your wife, your sister might all of a sudden not be the right person.
Yeah.
Because now you're so big, you need a different, so you got to manage how you grow.
Yeah.
Because that could be the worst thing, it could ruin your whole family. Just because now you got to go tell your sister, I got to go hire this guy from Yale who went to Harvard and worked on Wall Street.
Who's this guy?
I'm talking about some guy I know. Because they have the right, so having a partner is not a bad idea. But some people have been successful because they have partners that stay in their own lane. You're good at accounting and finance, I do business development, and it's worked. But no matter who you pick as a partner, I feel it's important to have the same goal.
Yeah.
What's the end game you're both trying to get to? And if you can't agree on the end game, it's not going to work. Sooner or later, you're going to be butting heads. There's going to be something going on.
You have to row in the same direction.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys all for coming and doing this. This has been riveting, and I've learned a lot. I want to give you each a chance. If there's anything that you want to say kind of in closing, I'll start with you, Eugene.
I would say
number one, thank you for this opportunity to come and talk about my business, listen to what you guys have to say as well. We're in different areas of business, but we all have the same struggles. And when we succeed, it's a beautiful thing, but it's not easy. I think that's the one message that I'd like to pass on to other people who want to be entrepreneurs. It's not an easy task, but I cannot think of a role which allows you to impact the lives of others.
Yes.
As positively as we can. So, thank you for the opportunity. I hope there are more entrepreneurs out there, and love the opportunity to help somebody else get started in this line of work.
That's great. John?
Yeah, also thank you for the invitation to be here, and chat with you guys. It's been great. Yeah, I mean, our story again, it's really, seeing problems out there and thinking there's got to be a better way, and building solutions to those problems, right? So, I mean, our measure of success, more than money, more than is how much can we impact the industry, right? And make at least our little corner of the world a better, more efficient place,
Absolutely.
right? So that's really how we measure ourselves. So when we talk in a year, we're dealing with all those other
That's right.
growth issues, right? Hopefully it's because we've made such an impact that momentum keeps on pulling us forward.
That's right.
That's the goal.
Luis?
Well, I appreciate the time and for the invite, and it's an honor to share the table with these powerful entrepreneurs. How you started this session was about housing, and SDA is not just aggressive on the intentions, actually it's very intentional what you're trying to do. I follow your videos that you upload, you buzz a bunch of people to walk neighborhoods.
We do.
You force them to see it and witness what's going on. And I get frustrated because I've seen not a lot of organizations being intentional about it. Everybody's okay to have people paying $3,000 in their rent, but they don't want to qualify them to pay $2,200 in mortgage.
Right.
Just want to tell you that I'm joining your fight.
Thank you.
I'm doing everything I can because I truly believe that it's a God's given right to own a home. And we're doing everything we can to improve manufacturing process. No robotics, no aerospace, something more conventional,
Yeah.
not too complicated, to deliver that mission for sure.
Thank you. That's
so much.
very powerful. And thank you all for being here. And thank you for your kind words about the work of the SDA and the work that we're doing. We get a chance to work with all three of you as clients, and we're grateful for that. And our commitment to you is to continue to find ways to promote you individually as organizations and our area. So with that, I'll just thank you guys and good night.
Thank you.